On today's program, ICEJ Canada National Executive Director Donna Holbrook and Miriam Perl, Director of Community Affairs at the Israel Consulate, discuss the Nova exhibition. Continuing his topic of prayer, ICEJ President Dr. Jürgen Bühler reveals the greatest effect that prayer has.
Hi, I'm with my friend Miriam Perl, and she is the Director of Community Affairs at the Israel Consulate for Toronto and Western Canada. And we've just experienced the Nova exhibit here in Toronto, the replication of what was in Israel on October 7th, 23. It's, how did you feel going through the exhibit, Miriam?
It was incredibly emotional. As soon as I walked in, the very first section of it, you are confronted with the most absolute evil, and you're just awash with this sense of sickening, watching the Hamas terrorists as snipers shooting indiscriminately to innocent victims, and you're just overtaken with the emotion of evil. It was very difficult at the very beginning, and then you proceed and you see a lot of the personal artifacts of the victims. It was incredibly emotional, and it's something that everybody should come and see. It's incredibly important that, especially here in Toronto and Canada at large, that they come out and see this exhibit.
And then you go through the camp. Did you know personally anyone who attended the festival or any hostages?
No, I can't say I knew anybody personally. I do have a daughter and grandchildren who live in Israel.
Right.
So, and I regularly visit Israel. So, you know, whatever happens in Israel is incredibly close to all of us.
All of everyone.
Right. We're all part of one family.
Even the Jewish community here are not sleeping.
Right.
Okay, we're across the world, but it is true. Everyone, you're connected. Absolutely. You are.
Yes, yes. One of the things that really stood out to me is when I was going through, there was someone from Zaka, which is a recovery organization, a Jewish organization that recovers the bodies after the terrorist attacks. They collect all the different body parts and give it a very dignified burial. And one of the things that he said, he was documenting his testimony about the sexual violence that took place. And he says, we are all the bereaved families.
Yes.
All of us together are the bereaved families. We're all mourning together. One other thing that stood out for me, I picked up one of the artifacts. It was a necklace.
Oh, did you?
It was a heart.
Oh, yeah.
And I picked it up and felt it and just felt the power of the person who owned that. And it was incredibly powerful.
Now, we have a consul general in Edith Shamir.
Yes.
I believe she said her aunt and a cousin were both killed.
That's right.
At the Nova Festival.
That's right.
I mean, their lives are instantly gone forever.
Exactly. Yeah. Working at the consulate, I'm sure there are many people at the consulate. You know, it's a tough bunch, Israelis. And it's not something that they talk about openly, but I know that, you know, especially members of our security have friends and family who have been personally affected, either as, you know, people fighting on the front lines in Gaza, people who have been murdered on October 7th, people who have been kidnapped. And we're all big one family there, and all of us have been very deeply impacted.
What is the response to people around you who may not be Jewish? If you do you bring up the topic? Are you able to talk to them about what happened? Are they willing to listen?
I personally, because I work mostly in the Jewish community, so the people I most come across are members of the Jewish community who are very well aware of what happened. But my sense of things is being exposed to, tons and tons of literature and materials that I come across is there's two responses. It's either justification or silence. And I think the majority of Canadians have chosen to be silent, either through ignorance or through complicity or maliciousness or anti-Semitism. And I think if one is willfully ignorant and refuses to take on new information or open up their minds to listening to new information, that in a sense is I think a form of anti-Semitism as well, and a form of complicity. So I think that's why coming here is very important for those who are what we call the mushy middles, the ones who are not staunchly anti-Semitic, the ones who aren't already allies, but those who are in the middle, who don't know what to believe and who are getting all kinds of misinformation from the media. And one can almost not blame them because our media has...
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, propagated so much misinformation.
They'll talk about genocide. There's not genocide going on from Israel's point. I just read today that Israel's trying to more effectively bring the food into Gaza, to the people of Gaza, because what happens, it comes in and it gets taken by the leaders of Hamas. They take it, they enjoy it themselves, they don't distribute it, or they sell it to the other Gazans. So Israel's not to blame because they allowed the food to come in, so they're looking at a new way in which they can help the actual Gazan Arab people get nutrition, get their food.
Right. So there's incredible misinformation out there. One can almost, like I said, not fully, blame anybody for holding certain views that they have. But that's why it's so incredibly important to come here and be faced with the truth and ask the questions and open up your minds and, get accurate information. So you're absolutely right. Israel has done everything in its power to allow in humanitarian aid and to protect the civilians of Gaza.
Yeah. And there was an attack at Ben Gurion, I heard today even.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, a missile.
So have you got your list of people who are not Jewish who you'll get to come here?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
Miriam, it's great working with you and having you as a friend.
Thank you so much, Donna, and thank you for bringing such a large group of people here. It's been very generous. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam.
Israel. It is the heart of the Middle East, the most important country in all of human history, and the single most influential place that's impacted your life. It was the home of the prophets, the location that once held the Holy of Holies, and the birthplace of the Gospels. The connection between this land and your heart is undeniable, but you can also be a blessing to this nation by partnering with the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem. Now is an exciting time to be a part of what God is doing in Israel. Biblical prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes. The Jewish people are returning to their homeland from the four corners of the earth, and life has returned to the land itself. And the Holy Spirit has been moving on the heart of Christians, just like you, to be a part, and ICEJ has been there. ICEJ has been the direct connection to the land of Israel for Christians all around the world. And together, we are helping the needy, providing shelter for Holocaust survivors, integrating new immigrants, supporting minorities, mentoring youth at risk, and have actively helped 120,000 Jews come home to Israel. These are just a few of the people groups ICEJ is impacting. And with a reach of over 170 nations, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has become a leading voice of Christian support and friendship to the Jewish people. So get involved and be a blessing to the nation and the people of Israel. The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem. Your embassy, your voice. Join us today.
Colossians chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. My goal is that their hearts may be encouraged, being knit together in love, and attaining to all riches of the full assurance of understanding to the knowledge of the mystery of God, both of the Father and of Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge.
As you spend time with Jesus, it not only changes something in heaven, of course, it will accomplish something in the heavenlies. We read this in many passages, but the much greater effect that prayer has is that it changes something in our lives, and it puts us in a place how God can use us in a greater measure than before. And that's what prayer is, this word, prosuki is being used. There's another passage, Matthew chapter 21, verse 13, a very critical passage. Jesus says, "My house shall be a house of prayer." And, you know, if we think about many of our congregations today, how much prayer there is going on, how about in our worship places, how much time do we really spend in prayer? We do a lot of activities there. We might have nice banquets and coffee meetings and all kinds of things. But the primary purpose why God says, by the temple in Jerusalem was being built, said it's a place where people can talk to God and where they can have communion with God, where God wants to meet with his people. And of course, the temple of God, we are now the temple of God, and the church is that, but that's where prayer, it should be the characteristic of the church today. In Luke chapter 6, verse 12, you know, people say, you know, I don't really need to pray so much. Jesus himself, Luke 6, verse 12, we read he was all night in prayer. That means he was spending all night speaking to the Lord. And, you know, I want to suggest to you very strongly, if Jesus as the Son of God had the need to spend the whole night in prayer with the Lord, how much more do we need to spend time with Yeshua and need to pray with him? In Acts chapter 3, verse 1, and that's all the same word that is being used here. And you see it's used in a more general term. Acts chapter 3, verse 1, it says the apostles went to the temple at the hour of prayer. That means there were fixed times in their lives where they were going into the temple to pray and to seek God. And let me ask you, are there those fixed times in your lives for prayer and seeking the Lord? And then in Acts chapter 6, verse 1, we see that prayer was a key point of the characteristics of the early church. Acts chapter 6, 1, it says that the apostle devoted them to prayer and to the ministry of the world. This was the time when the early church was appointing deacons that took care of the daily activity of the business of the church, providing food, providing social need to the people. Said it's not good for us as the apostles to deal with those matters in order to have more times to devote ourselves to prayer and to the study and the preaching of the word. And if you are a minister, I said this yesterday about John Wesley, he had a very high demand on his disciples. I'm afraid I wouldn't make it really to be one of his leaders. He says, I will take only people as pastors who are willing to to pray at least 3 hours a day. And I want to encourage you today that, if the Lord is speaking to you today, to rediscover prayer in your life, to make a point, like the apostles, they had an hour of prayer where they went to the temple to seek God, that you have in your daily routine and your daily calendar a time of prayer where you are seeking the Lord, because it will change your life. It will increase the level how God can use you, and you will see also that God will bring forth amazing answers to prayer in our lives. Now, the first time that prayer is being used in the Bible, it actually is used, and I think we already guess who it might be. It is by our father Abraham. Abraham is the very first person where the word tefillah is being used, and this is in Genesis chapter 20, verse 7, where Abimelech is being asked. He says, you have this sickness upon you that you brought upon you because you took Abraham's wives. Thanks God, the Lord protected him, that he didn't come too close to her. But he says, go to Abraham and he will pray for you. And that's for the first time we read that somebody was approaching God in regard to a certain need, at least where this word prayer is being used in the Old Testament. And I would just want to close that with a few comments on the Hebrew word of prayer. It's the word tefillah or lehit palel. And it's quite interesting, the word lehit palel. It is a word that exists only in the reflexive grammatical form. Now, what does it mean, reflexive? Reflexive, it means that it's a verb type in Hebrew, that if you do something, you actually do it to you. The most impact you have is it's on yourself. You use this, for example, if you put on your clothes or if you change your clothes, lehit labesh, exactly. I'm happy my wife is here to help me. Lehit labesh. And these are words that are reflexive in nature. That means it is something where you do something to yourself. And that's what I said in the beginning. As we spend time in prayer with Jesus, time in the presence of the Lord, the biggest impact actually is not so much on the heavenlies, it's much more on our own life. And this is, I believe, what Paul also says in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, is that we spend time with the Lord. We are being transformed from one measure of glory to the next measure of glory. And so it's a reflexive noun that is being used. And if you go to a dictionary, there are some quite good ones around that you can study in. And they really can't agree on what is the real root of the meaning of lehit palel, or the basic root of this word palel. What does it really mean? And I found in different dictionaries actually 7 different suggestions, and it shows you they couldn't really agree on that. But as I was reading those suggestions, I actually felt probably all of them are true. And let me just give them to you, because they really, in a way, they tell us what prayer is all about. Now, one scholar, I think it's his name, it's one of the oldest Christian dictionary in Greek. His name is Grimm, was a German Orientalist. And he says it comes from the Arab word falah, and it means to break something. And I think that's a fantastic idea, because prayer is really the thing that brings you a breakthrough. It's a thing that if you need something where the Lord breaks through and intervenes on your behalf, prayer is a perfect place for that. Now, others say, well, it comes from the Hebrew word from nafal. That means you prostrate yourself before the Lord. I think that's definitely also something what prayer entails, that as you approach the Lord, you humble yourself before the Lord and you tell him, Lord, I come to the end of my wisdom, the end of my strength, please, I need your help. I'm humbling myself before your presence. And that's what prayer is. The next one, they say that it comes from the Akkadian palalu. And if you see here, there are so many different suggestions, but I liked it. It says the Akkadian palalu, this Greek linguist says, because it means to guard or to watch. And it's quite interesting that in particular, the New Testament, in particular Jesus, he encourages us, he says, watch and pray. That means by praying, you are, this is Isaiah chapter 62. You see it here on the top left corner of your screen. That's the name of our prayer initiative, Isaiah 62. I have set watchmen on your walls, which shall never let you rest. And so it makes a lot of sense that it could come from the word to watch and to guard a city. Then some said it comes from the word to cleave, to break, to separate. And to demand judgment. That means you separate light and darkness, and that's something that definitely you also will do in prayer. And then another one which says that you appraise something or evaluate something, and you bring something in front of the Lord in prayer, and what you do, actually you evaluate it. And so many times I experienced this, even when sometimes you pray, you have to be very honest here, you pray sometimes for foolish things. As you engage in prayer, the Lord actually tells you, well, I don't think this is worthwhile of your time to pray for that. There are some other things that I need you to pray. Or he might remind you and say, you neglected that one situation, but if you pray for that, you can add weight to that, and you can bring forth a change as you pray. So prayer, and that's again, that's the second part of what I want to share with you here from 1 Timothy. It needs to be something that needs to be a daily routine of our lives. Some people say it's the breathtaking of the soul. And it is definitely something that strengthens our faith, that changes us, that increases our faith and expectations to the Lord. And I experienced this so many times, that when you are downtrodden and you have a difficult situation where you feel there is not much hope in that situation, but as you bring those matters to God in prayer, that you see there is a change in that situation, and also you feel a change in yourself. I have said this many times. In 2015, when the doctors gave this devastating diagnosis for my life, and they literally told me that there is not much hope. And I went back home from the hospital with my wife, and I remember sitting on the evening on the sofa when I came home from hospital. My children were crying, we were crying, Vesna and I thought, well, these are the last few weeks that I have with the family. And the only thing I knew to do, I actually didn't have much time to pray, or not time, yes, but not much strength to pray myself. But I called our friend Juha, who was at that time the international director, and he says, Juha, the only thing that really can help me is prayer. Please send out a prayer mail to our people that they should pray for me. And let me tell you what this prayer did. With my wife and I, we were waking up the next morning in the same situation, same living room, same apartment, everything was the same. But it was like somebody was turning a switch around. The house was filled with an atmosphere of expectation and faith. And our children that were crying the evening before, they came to us, Daddy, don't cry anymore, because Jesus is going to heal you. And Peter remembers we had the most astonishing prayer meetings during that time. And we felt really how prayer, of course, you see me sitting here, that's the answer of the prayer, but it also did so much to ourselves. It changed us, it transformed us, and it was an amazing time in the presence of the Lord.
Hi, I'm Donna Holbrook. I'm happy to say that we're in Israel at Rahavot at the Chaim Weizmann Institute property. Audrey Ruth Peer was one of our members who came to know about the work of the ICEJ
in bringing comfort here. And she passed away as an only child and with no children of her own. She had two regrets in her life. One was that she didn't have children, and the other one that she never came to the land of Israel. So when she passed away, she left an estate, and I wanted to make certain that the funds that she had given to us would be used in a way that she would have wanted. It was not designated. So I had a list of the ICEJ aid. I shared it with her friend Pat. And I said, Pat, what do you think Audrey would like, how we use her funds? And so it was decided. So music was important to her, children also important to her. And so we undertook the fund and we divided it 4 ways equally. And it went to a petting zoo for orphan boys near Tel Aviv. It also went to build 2 new music rooms at Bet Yosef up at Haifa, which is a very large community center. We also helped to complete a playground for another orphanage to the south of Israel. And then it enabled us to restore our scholarship for Christian young adults. This is a legacy that one of our members left. Her name, even though she was never in Israel, her name is in the land on those 3 projects, and it continued for 5 years on our Canadian scholarship for Christian leaders who have never been to Israel, who are in the age group of 17 to 30. 30 scholarship. These are new ambassadors back to Canada who are sharing their love of Israel and their understanding for the Jewish people. Would you consider being a shomer, keeper of Israel, in your state giving? That leaves a wonderful legacy here in Israel. I'd like to thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And be sure to visit our website at www.icej.ca or call us at 1-866-324-9133. And for our Canadian residents, be sure to ask for your free Canada-Israel pin. Through your contributions to ICEJ Canada, you can participate by giving to Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, Women at Risk Red Carpet Project, Operation Life Shield Bomb-Proof Shelters, Mentoring Programs, Aliyah Support, Children's Projects, Israel in Crisis, Israel Aid, Magan David Adam Emergency Services, Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, Scholarships for Young Adult Leaders, ICEJ Canada Media Fund, Gift Estate Securities Fund.